This is really an exciting moment for us because we haven't had this many people enrolled in one of these sessions in a long time. And so we're really grateful for you coming today. We realize that so many people signed up for this particular program, and we know that they can't possibly come unless they're getting up in the middle of their morning. Because we've had registration from countries in Africa to Australia, New Zealand, South America. We've just really been excited by how interested people are in this topic. So I'm wondering, as we begin this program, if you wouldn't mind just putting your name in the chat, telling us where you're from in the world, and then just out of curiosity, because we are really curious as a staff at the Charter for Compassion, what what interested you in coming to this particular session? We're curious people. And so we'd appreciate your response to that. And as I'm saying these words, I'm buying a little bit of time because usually what happens is that people continue to come in, which is true right now. As we move forward with this, we are extremely grateful to the people who you will be meeting today. They hail from Compassionate Sacramento or Compassionate Chill. I think that's part of the name. And they've been about the business of compassion for quite some time. And for people who might not know, Sacramento is in the state of California in the United States. And the group that you are about to meet have really been successful in creating a grassroots organization, an organization that looks at the issues of compassion and looks at the issues of concern within their community, and also how is it that they can address and build a team so that they can address those issues. So I think that one of the things that you'll be getting access to is a guidebook that they have really labored over, because originally their guidebook was for specifically Sacramento, but now it's for a more general audience. And we'll make certain that you get the link to that guidebook, but we're also going to make it into an ISSU book that'll be on our website so that you can actually work with it as a book. Give us a few days before we do that, but we're looking forward to making it available. And so I am going to introduce you first to Dr. Laura Hansen, who is part of the impetus behind Compassionate Sacramento. And I'm going to ask her to introduce her team and maybe say a few words about herself. So Laura, we'll take it to you.
Thank you, Marilyn. And I appreciate the escalation of my title, but I believe in only using titles that I've earned. So instead of doctor, it'll be Reverend. So thank you. I'd like to introduce my compassionate colleagues, my compassion colleagues. We all hail from the Sacramento area. We started this work a little over 10 years ago, and we've learned a lot. We wanted to share what we've learned with you. We have a presentation, a PowerPoint presentation that will guide the sharing of our case study, and then we'll have we hope at least half an hour for questions and conversation. I'd like to first introduce Reverend Tanya Beverly. If you'd like to introduce yourself and then popcorn it to your next team member.
Hello, everyone. I'm Reverend Tanya Beverly. I'm here in West Sacramento, California, and I'm happy to be with you all.
And next, Susan Ruppel, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Susan Ruppel, and I'm also in West Sacramento, and am happy to have been part of the development of the Compassion Ambassador program, and I'm happy to be here today. Thank you.
And Melinda Penny Washington, if you wouldn't mind saying hello.
Sure. Hello, everyone. I'm so excited about this huge turnout from around the world. It's pretty impressive. I'm from Sacramento, California as well, and I'm excited to be here.
I'll share one thing before we get into this. Is I've been a native Sacramentan, although I've traveled to other countries and had different experiences. Sacramento's been my home. And when I was 14 years old, I was traveling from my house to my boyfriend's house across the railroad tracks. And when I got to the top of the railroad tracks, I had, it was a vision in front of me of everyone in Sacramento were gathered at the railroad tracks with me, and they all had the question, what do we do now? What do we do? And that moment shaped the rest of my life. And I believe I'm not the only person who had a vision of a community asking, how do we do this? How do we be in community? How do we be in support of each other? How do we work together? How do I have compassion for someone I don't understand their way of life? How do we do this? And that's been my pursuit of learning, how do we do this? How do we be together as a community? And what came from that is a group of us found each other at this particular moment in time and created what I believe is a remarkable model, not only for how to do it, but who to be while we do it. So with that, I'd like to kind of begin our case study here. Let me see. So be percolating about that with what has it been like for you through your Compassionate Communities initiative? What are the stumbling blocks? What are the insights? Because all of us are asking that question, how do we do this? And some of us are getting some answers, and that's why we want to share what we've learned with all of you, because it will take all of us sharing what we know. Okay, so I'm going to go through the, I believe, short steps of sharing the presentation here. And share sound, got it. I'm going to get rid of this panel. Okay. Can everyone see this? Since someone want to unmute?
Yes.
And let me
Yes.
see.
Yes.
Awesome. This photo in the background is of the Sacramento River, and West Sacramento is on the right and Sacramento is on the left. And what we're starting off with is a video of what it is to be a Compassion Ambassador, and that's featuring Melinda Penny Washington. See if we can get this right here. Here we go.
Community well-being is important to me because I recognize it as being part of the foundation of health for people and for the planet, really. when it comes to people, we are designed to work in community. I believe that we're designed to interact with each other, support each other, receive help from each other. And that's what builds strong bonds and compassion. And I work as an ambassador for District 5, and part of what I've done in the past is sit on the committee to help our unhoused neighbors by building a shelter, just being in the middle of those talks or listening to those talks and seeing how I can support. So I remember being in kindergarten and organizing a protest. So we made little signs and we marched on the playground, and they let me do it, you know, out of activism. But then when it came time to go back inside after recess, they told me to shut it down, and it wasn't talked about. So I went home to my mom and I was like, and they called my mom, and you know, I was going to be in trouble if I didn't go back, because I didn't want to go back to school or go back in. And my mom I was saying, Mom, why wouldn't they honor what we want? And she said, because not everybody prioritizes. That's not a priority for everybody. And that was just like, oh, I was like, nope. So I had all this anger. And when with Black Lives Matter, I was exhausted. I didn't want to fight that way because I was tired and I felt like no one cared. And then Laura, you know, who is the orchestrator of Compassionate Ambassadors here in Sacramento, her approach, meeting her at a racial justice conference, her approach was so beautiful, and it was through compassion. And I got a chance to meet with like-minded advocates and allies that wanted to show up to hold space and confront injustice. And her approach was something that was really something I hadn't explored. So that helped me look at showing up as a compassionate ambassador through the lens of activism in a whole different way. It's not so taxing for me. So the conversations that we have in the style that Laura presents, and how I've been taught to hold space and ask questions, and then even on a spiritual level, how to hold space. So much that's involved ahead of time with the intentions, that it kind of disarmors the people that show up for that conversation are already disarmored. And so it's just about listening and growing and understanding and showing up. And it's about the collective versus just one person. The role of compassionate ambassador sometimes means showing up, and that's it. Just showing up and holding space, listening, showing up with the intention of peace, and being able to observe my own healing happen in the presence of holding space for others to heal.
So with that background, what we're sharing, and we're so happy to be able to share this, is the guidebooks, a little over 60 pages, going into really the operational detail of how do we do this? How do you be that team of weavers and liaisons and connectors? And this gives the framework for that, as well as a lot of templates and tools as well. We're also sharing the sponsorship guidebook, and this is a funding tool for how do you approach local and regional businesses and have them, one, be a partner with you, and also for them to build compassion capacity within their organization. So we're sharing that as well. At the beginning, I talked about the spark for the Compassion Ambassador role back in my early days, and how it took kind of firm shape was about 10 years ago, 2015 or so, when I started talking with the executive directors of community foundations, talking with grassroots community leaders, talking with elected officials, and really doing an environmental scan. How is everything working right now within the California's state capital? How are we working together? And what I found that was missing is there wasn't good communication between the different sectors of the community. And I went, okay, that's something that I think would be a tremendous asset to the community. And so that was how it took shape, kind of operationally, of how do we move forward. And I'm going to ask Reverend Tanya Beverly to talk about this model of what a compassion ambassador does and the vision that we take into the community about how to do this, how to be a community and do it well, being a compassionate community in action.
Thank you, Reverend Laura. And so what we have up on the screen here is a pictorial overview of the vision of the Compassion Ambassador Program. The Chill Sacramento Compassion Ambassador Program is designed to address diverse problems and obstacles within the community by fostering compassion, collaboration, and community engagement. And this is how it works. We as a community come together, we identify problems and obstacles. We begin sharing information, bringing attention to specific problems that are faced by individuals and groups within a community. And through this process, it creates awareness and it drives collective action to address these issues. And that the problems that people bring together, we address them as individuals, we bring in local businesses, nonprofits, and government entities to collaborate on these community issues. Relationship building is a vital part of this process. Sharing stories helps to foster empathy and understanding among community members. And by hearing others' experience, as well as people being able to relate to different perspectives, it begins to build stronger bonds. And through the exchange of information, and community members can begin to find common ground and share their cultural heritage and build trust. And this helps in forming a meaningful connection and a sense of belonging. And through the process, we begin to share ideas, and inspiration comes from these ideas. The program offers educational events and workshops that inspire community members to take action, not just talk about it, but come together and do something about the obstacles and challenges in our community. And then we bring in our community leaders to have that empowers the whole process in addressing systemic issues and begin to promote social change. Community safety is important in this process, and through various initiatives like the Compassion in Action Art Day series, the program provided safe and creative spaces for community members to express themselves, not only sharing their stories, but those relationships that we build are so vital. And these activities helped in addressing some of the emotional and psychological challenges that were coming up in the community. Health and wellness is a factor. That by promoting these activities, we focus on health and wellness, and the program addresses physical and mental health challenges within the community. And this holistic approach ensures that the community members are supported in all aspects of their well-being. Because remember, we're talking now, we're sharing information, we're telling our stories, and through that becomes this open relationship where we have a safe ground where we can share information. Compassionate Communities in Action. The program supports local organizations by providing resources, recognition, and opportunities for collaboration. And that is the key, the opportunities for people to talk. And this strengthens the capacity of these organizations to address specific community needs. And then we come together after all of this and we celebrate the successes. The program emphasizes the importance of celebrating the community successes together. And this recognition fosters a sense of pride and motivation to continue doing this work and working towards a compassionate and thriving community. Thank you. I'll turn it over to you, Laura.
I think you're hopping on,
Okay.
going from that model to how we developed our way forward. I remember all of us being in your living room, and we had this conversation. So I'd love for you to share about this in the next
Absolutely.
slide, the next one.
Compassionate ambassadors. I love the term and sharing it with those in my community. At Chill Sacramento, we believe that compassion is a collaborative effort. Our neighbors' problems are our problems. And this philosophy is deeply rooted in the Kwanzaa principle of Ujima, which states collective works and responsibilities to build and maintain our communities together and make our brothers and sisters' problems our problems to solve them together. The Compassionate Ambassador Program embodies these principles by fostering a community where empathy and mutual support are at the forefront. As compassionate ambassadors, our mission is to create a safe and nurturing environment where every individual feels valued, heard, and supported. So our goals are primarily about community engagement, building strong, supportive relationships within our community, and through active listening and genuine concern for one another. Education and awareness, promoting understanding and compassion through educational workshops, events, and discussions. And through collaboration, working together to address and solve the challenges faced by our community members as well. And as compassionate ambassadors, the support that we offer the community is varied. We see ourselves as connectors, building bridges between individuals and resources. The weavers, strengthening the fabric of the community through relationships. As guides, providing direction and support for community initiatives. As mentors, offering wisdom and guidance to community members. And yes, we are facilitators, helping to coordinate and organize community events and discussions. And we serve as counselors, providing a listening ear and emotional support. And we sometimes show up as the elders, sharing knowledge and wisdom and experience to benefit the community. And stewards, caring for the community well-being and future. And by embodying these roles, compassionate ambassadors help create a nurturing environment where every individual feels valued, heard, and supported. And this is how we work towards a more compassionate and unified world.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. These are the happy faces back in 2018, I believe 18 or 19. And who you have on your team or how you develop this ideally should be reflective of the cultures within your community. And something we wanted to step into is we talked about districts and about it being specific to Sacramento. As part of this case study presentation, these are the 8 city council districts that make up the city of Sacramento. The Sacramento region is a much larger 7-county region. We focused on the eight districts, and each compassion ambassador lived within the district they represented and met with their city council member and organization and community organizations. So this is something that might take a moment to absorb. So I'm glad that this presentation is being recorded and that our presentation deck will be available. We divided this timeline up into phases. So from 2014 to 2015, we were developing the organizing team according to the guidelines for the Charter for Compassionate Communities organizing steps. This is what we were doing in 2014 and 15. And after about a year, we decided to expand it to the 7-county region as just to have a view of that. And then for the next 2 years, and I see there's a typo of 725-1, I think that's 817. It was grassroots support. We facilitated a lot of community meetings throughout the 8 districts of Sacramento. And we also made a few presentations to city council. There is nothing, oh, there's my 7, I see it. There is nothing like positive pressure when you speak at a city council meeting or a county of supervisors meeting. It's very difficult for a mayor and a city council to say, we don't believe in compassion and we're not in agreement. It hasn't happened yet. And so if that's why it's such an important part of the plan is to, we had in some meetings, city council meetings, during the public comment, we would have like 15, 20 representatives from throughout the city to come speak in 2-minute intervals about the importance of working together and being part of this Compassionate City initiative. And it was successful. On July 25th of 2017, the resolution was passed. And in 2017, prior to that, we had a citywide Interdependence Day, and that kind of helped seal the deal. And that was in 2017. So we had organizing and socializing, public, presentations, pressure, more grassroots, showing grassroots support, having a big community celebration. And then that helps gather people together so that the like-minded folks start to find each other, and then you begin to build your Compassion Ambassador team. In this particular case, in 9/16 of 2018, which was about a year after the resolution, is when we had our public launch of Compassionate Sacramento. It was partially funded by the mayor's office. All the city council members were on board. And then after that public launch, then the Compassion Ambassadors began meeting with their council members, understand what the issues are, where are the gaps, how can they be that weaver and guide and mentor that Reverend Tanya talked about. And we began to schedule our compassion and action events. If you remember from the illustration, right in the center, it's community, compassionate communities in action. We scheduled 8, one in each district, throughout the year of 2020. And we spent all of 2019 organizing that with community partners and vendors and sponsors and social justice leaders and youth groups, all of it. And we were able to get one done before the pandemic hit. And that was in Melinda's district. And then we had a big immediate pivot to moving from in-person to online events, using as many of the same partners as we could and inviting as many of the same constituents as we could to those online circle events. And then over the ensuing 2 years, we began to meet monthly as a way to kind of stay in touch and continue to build compassionate communities. And during that time, we brought on both Elk Grove and West Sacramento. So that's a very quick overview of our timeline, and I'd be interested to learn kind of what your timeline was or how you envision it. So we want to talk about why this model worked. And we're going to share 5 main aspects as to why this worked. And what we mean by why it worked is how you are within yourself, what your motivation is, how you approach your communication with community leaders and organizations. That is critical to adoption. It's critical to building an alliance. We had over 80 community organizations all agree that yes, we are doing the work of, that they are doing the work of creating a compassionate community. And they were in agreement to participating in whatever we would ask them to do. So we want to go into this, and Melinda is going to talk about this first aspect.
Thank you, Laura. So, altruism is very important, speaking to the hearts and minds of others. One definition I saw that was really amazing was that it's the selfless act of helping others without expecting anything in return. And this creates a sense of belonging and reduces isolation. And right now, I think is so important more than ever. I know here in the United States, out of COVID, the US Surgeon General has talked about we have an epidemic of loneliness and isolation. And so this here speaks directly to the need for creating community. And there's actually an advisory board by the US General that addressed the effects of social connection and community. So to me, this is like the medicine to the wound of isolation, creating compassion and through compassion ambassadors.
And thank you, Melinda. What I'd like to add to this is when you're talking with elected officials, when you're talking with grassroots leaders who are out there every single day working for and with their community, they know what kind of agenda, they know what agenda looks like and feels like. They can tell when someone is doing this for their own reasons, or to be a hero, or to be a savior, especially if you're a white person. That is very evident, and you will find pushback or disengagement or non-engagement. What was, I believe, key for us is we stood in the belief of altruism, that we only care about creating a way for all of us to work together and be healthy, safe, and well. That's it. It didn't matter about credit or superstar, anything. It was, we are stewards of the community. This is ours to do. And if you have that approach, they'll line up to be with you, because that's what they want too. They want more help. Community organizers, community leaders, they want all the help they can get. So,
Yeah. Medicine.
yeah, medicine, lots of it. And really, this is what we just talked about, and that we found each other. And that's as you've begun to work in your community, you will find the folks, and I'm sure many of you have, that are here to work with you. And it's just critically important that you know them and trust them, and that you all are aligned around your vision and your approach. And Tanya, I think
Yes.
you're up for the next two. Yeah.
Yes, stakeholder mapping and engagement is a very critical stage that it's important to go through, because you need to identify and analyze who the stakeholders are and who are the folks that can impact, or more importantly, be impacted by the project. It helps in understanding their interests, their influence, and the potential role that they can play in the success of this particular initiative. And the importance of engaging these stakeholders is that by gaining their support and involvement, you're talking about they help in the area of influence and power. And when I'm talking about implied power, power in their position, power to make things happen, power for movement, significant influence and power, providing resources and insight. They can be your champions. They can be the door openers. And these stakeholder holders act as champions, advocating and promoting the project within their existing networks. Collaboration and synergy is vital. These stakeholders can foster that collaboration and also offer innovative solutions to enhance the outcome. Community support involving community leaders and organizers ensures that the project aligns with the needs and aspirations of your communities. And then we talk about risk mitigation, is identifying and addressing stakeholders' concerns early in the process, because you don't want to begin this process and get down the road and find out one of the stakeholders has concern, because it can derail your entire process. That's why this step is so critical. And what we've learned is by bringing in influential and supportive stakeholders, the project can benefit from their expertise. Not only expertise, but their resources and their networks. Why go out and create a new network when they already have an existing one? Ultimately leading to more successful and impactful outcomes. And by effectively mapping and engaging these stakeholders, we were able to create a more inclusive, collaborative, and successful program. And these insights are valuable for future initiatives, because remember, it's about relationship building and helping in building a strong and resilient community. The next part is local government communication protocols and best practices. I can't emphasize this enough. Is when you're working with and communicating with elected officials and their staff run interference, and that's your first line of defense. It's essential to learn the ropes. There are many unwritten rules that, if followed, can significantly enhance the effectiveness of your interactions. And understanding these protocols and best practices can lead to a more successful collaboration and positive outcomes for your community initiatives. The importance and benefit of learning the communication is about building those relationships, because once you begin to build those relationships, there is mutual respect, and then all of a sudden folks listen to what you say because they're respecting and they understand what you're trying to do. And it helps with effective networking as well. It also ensures clarity. Now, clear messaging is so important. The best practices that helps ensure your messages are clear, concise, and professional. And this reduces misunderstanding and miscommunication. Navigating the bureaucracy is not an easy thing. Understanding the hierarchy, who you need to talk to, who you need to contact, these are vital pieces in the process that will help you navigate the often complex hierarchy that within local government. And it'll help to create a more efficient process that, if you understand the protocols, you can streamline your communication and go direct to the person who is going to carry your communication forward. It also helps you in gaining support. Effective communication can help you gain the support and advocacy of elected officials who can champion. Remember, we're building these relationships, and so they're championing your causes and advocating on your behalf. So it's important that they respect, that they understand, that you're consistent with your communication. And so what we've learned is that by adhering to these communication protocols and best practices, we begin to foster a productive and supportive relationships within local government and ensuring the success and sustainability of these community initiatives.
Thank you, Reverend Tanya. I'll share one small anecdote, and this, it was so rough. So we had just sat down with the mayor's team to start to plan the Compassionate Sacramento launch that took place in 2018. And so we got the budget for it. They wanted a lot of things that weren't realistic in the time frame that we had, but that was okay. So and if you're familiar with local government, at least in the United States, maybe it is elsewhere, the city council members are usually not on board with what the mayor wants, because they all want to, be the hero and be the lead on what they want. So rarely can the mayor say to all the city council members, "We're doing this," and they all say, "Okay." So even though we had presented to the entire council, the resolution was passed, everyone was on board, What the mayor did is he then, after we met on the budget and the plan, set the date, he sent out an email to all of the city council members saying, we're doing this. They're going to reach out to you, find X amount of money in your budget, and here's the date. And I read that and went, oh. So what, it was crickets, and I knew it would be. What I had to do was climb the mountain of resistance and I'm sorry, Mayor Steinberg, but anyway, so climb the mountain of resistance and reestablish a communication with that city council member so that they could see the benefit to their district and why they want to do it. So we focused on what we will do is work with them on their own district compassion in action event. But first we're having this overall launch. And then they said, okay. So it's knowing that type of thing, and also how to work through issues. And it's always the chief of staff that you want to have the best relationship with. The elected official is easy. It's the chief of staff. You have to earn their trust and make sure you're not wasting their time. There's a lot else to say about this. I just wanted to share that one story with you. That don't be daunted if you find yourself behind, a pile of resistance. Just find your way through it, and it ultimately created much stronger relationships. Overcoming resistance and conflict always does. Strong relationships. So this last one, Susan Ruppel is going to speak to, and it's critically important.
As you can imagine, thank you, Laura. If you're not organized, few will take you seriously. And this is especially the case with not only leaders in your community, but particularly elected officials at city council meetings, with businesses that you want to invite be sponsors. So we developed the Compassion Ambassador Program framework, and particularly the project management aspects of it, to support attracting and retaining program volunteers, including the Compassion Ambassadors themselves, as well as attracting the community leaders, elected officials, and their staffs, and the program sponsors that we desired to have involved. So this program and its framework show that rather than compassion being just a concept, it's a focused and actionable program for the benefit of our communities and all the stakeholders.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. We've over the years heard more than once that thank goodness you're organized. Thank you for having this all prepared. It was just a big relief that no one had to do none of our community partners, the elected officials, had to do any kind of heavy lift. We shared it all because we want the heavy lift to be what we do together in the work, not on the logistics of trying to get something done. So we've talked about what did work. Because this is a case study, we present the whole thing. So what didn't we have? We didn't have capacities for long-term engagement. And this is a youth circle during our Compassionate Sacramento launch event. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. We had funding for our large launch event. We had grant applications out there. We were beginning down that path. And then the pandemic hit, and that made it very difficult for us to move forward and really figure out how do we do this kind of online. And and the stipends were a big piece of that. We were all volunteer. We had day jobs. And your whole team may be volunteer still. We believe, and it was built into our philosophy and to our budget, that the people doing the hard work within a community should be compensated and valued for their time. And we have in the budget what we believe is a appropriate honorarium. Depending on your community, you can adjust that. And we believe, given the current climate, that there, and I think the appetite is always there for granting organizations with aligned interests to support this work. And the other piece of that is partnering with a larger organization. Chill Center was a small nonprofit. That's the nonprofit that housed the program. And it did not have a strong reserve or funding base. If it had some reserve operational capital, we would have been able to provide the stipends while we continue to build our sponsors and our granting partners. So we believe this is very important to being sustainable over time, and for the compassionate ambassadors to be valued with real equity, with financial compensation. So continuing the work, and we want to share this one moment in time, and that's Mayor Steinberg right there with the brown issues button on. So this was our launch event for Compassionate Sacramento, and he was one of the many speakers. We had developed a relationship in the months and about a year or so with the Sacramento chapter of Black Lives Matter. And we had been at the council meetings where Black Lives Matter and the mayor really were in conflict with each other, and they weren't hearing each other, especially the mayor not really hearing the pain that Black Lives Matter leaders were sharing at the podium. So we reached out to the leads and invited them to the launch event. I said, please come and protest in a way that you believe is appropriate. And so they did. And they made these beautiful signs, all focused around compassion. That all of it was compassion and love based. And they silently held the signs up during the mayor's speech on stage. And you'll see this inset photo here. This is of the mayor, and there's Tanya there, Tanya Faison, and then the other members of Black Lives Matter off to the side, under the shade of trees, having their first conversation. And they made great progress. They were able to have a conversation in an environment that was set at compassion, that was set at listening, at being our brother and sister's keeper. And it led the way for better communication going forward. And that's the power of bringing the sentiment, the intention, and the logistics for creating a space where two groups or two people can come together to a different place within them to have a new kind of conversation. So we're getting close to having our discussion phase of this. And I think Susan wanted to, what number are we on? I think
Yes.
Susan, you're sharing about this slide.
Yes, thank you, Laura. We're sharing our story and resources to inspire and support worldwide ripples of compassion competence. So we created these documents to provide a framework for compassion and action through this Compassion Ambassador program. So rather than having to figure out how to structure and implement the program, the Compassion Ambassadors can focus on their unique geniuses of connector, weaver, guide, mentor, facilitator, counselor, elder, and steward. So you can use these guidebooks as a resource to develop or evolve your own Compassion Ambassador program. So these guidebooks inform and educate the hosting organization team about the Compassion Ambassador program and provide the structure, processes, templates, and support for the Compassion Ambassadors and their teams to be able to hit the ground running in the easiest way possible. It's also meant to be a valuable resource for the hosting organization's volunteer manager to know what volunteer resources are needed to support this important program. The Compassion Ambassador Sponsorship Guidebook is a step-by-step operations guide for building an ecosystem of mission-aligned funding partners. Stakeholders want to know the value proposition, the mix of benefits and economic value of the program, which is detailed in the sponsorship guide. Businesses in the region benefit because the program contributes to the active health and well-being of the community, training adults and youth to be better stewards, volunteers, and employees, including helping develop personal agency, leadership skills, value teamwork, and critical thinking to make good decisions. So they are already connected in their community and have a sense of and participate in community engagement. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. And now we can have our discussion, and I'm going to stop sharing. See if I can do the share. And Marilyn, whatever would be the best way. I see a hand raised by Zoe. Hi, Zoe. I think you're on mute.
Hi, I am so glad that I made it. Let me know if I have the floor to ask questions. Perfect. Thank you so much. I arrive a little bit late because I have a business and I'm launching a podcast with a newsletter, hopefully by the mid-March with the fires. I mean, I'm in Los Angeles, so with the fires now, everybody wants to be in compassion mode. So that has been a great progress because the last time that I reached to Maryland and Compassionate California was to present to the West Side Government Council. So I'm in Santa Monica and I presented to the West Side Council of Governments, which is the government of Culver City, Beverly Hills, West Hollywood, and Santa Monica. Yes, those are the four ones. But we are the only one who have signed a charter for compassion, and we have not been assigned funding. My experience because every city is different and every city, composition and politics is different. So unfortunately, my city, and it's well known in LA County in general, is very difficult to manage because of the different political interests that are fighting with the public interest. So in Santa Monica, the mayor is not separate. The mayor is a member of the city council. So it's an incorporated city, and we elect 7 city council members, and amongst them, they vote to have a mayor for either 2 or 4 years. So fortunately, the mayor of this time, Lana Negrete, is a friend, and she is a true compassion ambassador. She has been so incredible during the fires, LA fires. However, and I asked for funding because, I see all the
Could I just step in a minute? What is your question or?
funding. How do you approach city for funding and what has been successful ways? I just wanted to give you
Yeah.
a preview before asking the question because it is not a one size fits all in my experience. So yeah.
Yes, funding will ideally come from several different streams. You'll have company sponsorships, you'll have grants from granting organizations. And regarding the city, most city council districts, and this goes maybe for any type of municipality, they have very specific budgets with line items. So in the case of Sacramento, each city council had a $500 budget. But what they did is they helped for their event. What they did is they helped leverage relationships. So we got a lot of things for free. But as far as general operational funding, unless you lobby and can successfully convince the city to have this type of organizer be a full-time city position, then you're going to have to look at braided funding from several different sources. But to get to partner with the city on any kind of funding, it would be specific to the district on what the value of it is for them and how it would benefit their community. So I think you have to get a little granular. It won't, I would be surprised if you got a blanket, amount of money for anything you wanted to do. It has to be very targeted. And there's nothing wrong with starting small, because once something works, then the other cities or other districts will want it. So whatever you can do to have a successful working model that then can be replicated and because they build trust. Any other feedback on that?
My experience so far is, the city even tried to buy Compassionate Santa Monica by the name to do their own because they want to target and use it for political purposes. And they were
Yeah, that's a no.
And that's a no. For me, that was like, no, I'm not selling, especially because
it's not for sale.
I know. So I've been doing this since 2013. That's when Santa Monica signed the Charter for Compassion. So it's been an uphill battle, but it's just like the politics is still something that I struggle with.
Yes, and I think that goes to the first quality that parts the seas of politics, and that's altruism. And to really look at appealing to the altruism in each person's heart, and that will change your strategy. Marilyn.
Yeah, a little bit in response to what Zoe was saying, but also just the experience of the charter in working with local mayors and in some cases governors. Very few of our compassionate communities have a liaison or an official within local government that receives a salary. We do have a few, but they are far and few between them. But there are oftentimes the recognition where if in working with local government, if you find almost an advocate in local city council or a city manager. City managers are so important to make friends with. And when you're from outside of the U.S., you know, what is an equivalent of someone who really has the ear of the local politicians? And you want to bring those advocates from local government right from the very beginning into conversation with you. The other thing is, and this is true, I think we want to think about how do we diversify the voices that are speaking for compassion. Sometimes, you know, it might take someone who is a senior citizen who's lived a really seasoned life that people listen to. Sometimes it's a young child who is really advocating for an environmental change or attention. So that we really want to think intergenerationally. I think another thing is that we want to think always of umbrella organizations, so that, you know, if you can look at interfaith councils, interfaith groups, and they exist throughout the world. If you're in South Asia, or if you're in the UK, or if you're in the United States or Canada, those interfaith groups are really wonderful to work with. And again, think umbrella. Think about schools. You know, think about not only public schools, private schools, independent schools, but who might be the representatives there. And I know that someone here said, you know, I think it was Marge, every community has a different composition. And as you begin to develop, and I'm wondering if maybe Laura and others of the team could speak to the value of really training yourselves, not only in self-compassion, but in the techniques of leadership, how important that is, because we have experienced over and over and over again at the Charter, we work intently with mayors or city councils, and then all of a sudden there's an election and we have to say goodbye to those particular leaders. And so the real heart of compassion in a community is the team that you're creating. So I'm wondering if you know, you can speak to that.
And if the other, my other colleagues, if you want to raise your hand, and then we can know you have something to share on this too. We have over 80 community partners, what we call a Compassion Alliance. Many of those are different faith-based organizations, churches, synagogues, temples. And we would kind of collaborate on being able to come in and share what we're doing as a compassionate city and how they're involved. I would say on the leadership side, it happens that almost all of the district compassion ambassadors had many years of leadership training and being coaches, being mentors, and being facilitators. So we were all seasoned in those areas. And I believe that is critical, that you must have your leads with those competencies and that experience. Hi, Aldonia. So, and if any of the other presenters have any communication about that. So you need to, let's say you had a team of 7, at least 4 of them have to have that competency and then can train the others into that space. That's critical. Otherwise, you're going to light fires instead of putting them out.
Yeah, I agree with you, Laura. I think I shared earlier in my part of the presentation about ambassadors being connectors, weavers, guides, mentors, facilitators, counselors, elders, stewards. those skills are, you can't come to this this position and not have those baseline skills, because you never know what you're going to have to deal with in the community. And so if you are better prepared when you're dealing with elected officials, community members, when you're moving projects forward, and I even think dealing with mediation could be another one of those areas, dealing with conflict, facilitating town hall meetings. So you are the bridge, you are that connector in the community. We learned that it was not our job to go in and recreate what the community is already doing, but it was to highlight, tell the story, network, and connect people together. And in order to do that, you need to have solid skills. So whether you're building capacity within your organization, someone there needs to have these baseline skills in order to be effective and respected in doing this work.
Yeah. Anyone else from the team have something to share?
I like to share a little something that I thought was really helpful as well. I remember cultivating our relationships as ambassadors also, so that we learned kind of how to, I learned some of the nonverbal cues of when to step in, when to support, and I knew a little bit of background about the people that I was aligned with in creating a compassionate environment when we had these discussions. So building that team through potlucks and different outings also helped.
Yeah, I think we really should just be on this call all day, and then tomorrow, and the next day, and the next day, until we're done. That's, we touched on it in the qualities, but I think under that, you have to be strong and have boundaries and have those key skills. And Reverend Tanya and I got partway through a Compassion Ambassador training program, and then life intervened and we put ourselves on other priorities. But I know that the charter, I mean, there are many leadership training programs, but just as a consideration, when you look at the competencies of your team, or that the team you want to build, find the people that are already leading. Reverend Tanya was already leading in her community. Susan, already leading. Melinda, already leading. So we found people who were already community leaders, who it was clear we were drawing ourselves together because of our alignment on what we are each doing. And what we are each doing is looking for ways to create a better community. And so it's very important that those skills be present in members of your team, and then the rest can rise up. Marilyn.
I have so much to say about this, only because I'm so lucky, because I get to see the whole world in terms of compassion and what's happening. And one thing that you said, and that is not necessarily you, Laura, but your team, that how important it is to bring in others, organizations, perhaps individuals in partnership, because the one thing that we have found that our most successful, compassionate communities are the ones that really have dialogue, input, action with a lot of partners. So for example, Louisville, Kentucky has been a real highlight, and it lived through the tragedy that it experienced with Breonna Taylor and that whole horrible episode that occurred in Louisville, Kentucky, because it was a compassionate community. They have 140 some partners. The same thing with Atlanta. They have about the same number of partners. Partners are really, not only the glue, but most importantly, they're the pillars of your community. And you're doing a service by bringing these partners in, because very often you can ask the question in your community, what's happening that's really good in our community. And you bring in those partners, and I almost guarantee you that in many cases, they've never talked with one another. So that your service is really igniting conversation, dialogue, and compassionate action by really fulfilling that goal of bringing partners into the fold. So I just wanted to add that.
That's definitely a part of the model that we're sharing, because we essentially want everyone to be a compassion ambassador. Every single person, every single organization. Yes, Susan.
To add what Marilyn was saying is this ability to be the bridge and the connector. We help the community see where there's overlap that's happening in different organizations, where there's synergies and where there's gaps. So those are three important elements: is overlaps, synergies, and gaps.
Thank you, Susan. I do see a question from Vincent of the Wendy Hope Foundation, about how does the Charter for Compassion support not-for-profit organizations in developing countries. I don't know if that's something you can say a moment about here, Marilyn, or if that's offline.
Right now, we're coming close to 600 compassionate communities in 55 countries. People often think that, the Charter for Compassion is primarily the United States. It's not. And even our mailing list is not. I think probably our database is about 30% of people from the US. So how do we support you? First, in dialogue, so that we need to talk, we need to find out what's happening in your community. And the most important lesson for any of us as we move forward, and if it's creating a new organization or creating a compassionate initiative, you can't do it by yourself. I can't emphasize that enough. You need the kind of team that you're seeing here today. You need at least 3-4 people at the very least in order to really move your effort forward. The charter now has this wonderful gift from Compassionate Sacramento, but we also have a unique toolbox that we've received even a financial award for because of the very fact that it took a real community of people from compassionate communities to put the toolbox together and to make it better. And we went to the Community Toolbox Center at the University of Kansas, which has been around for 30 years specializing in this. And they helped us really hone the toolbox. So it's available to you. And whenever you come up against a barrier, hopefully we're there to be able to give you advice. I know that my very first compassionate community that I worked with was in Botswana, and it was all done online. And so much of our work is done online, and I'm grateful to the times that I've been able to visit communities around the world. Just to see the uniqueness of the kinds of programs that people are putting together, the issues with which they're dealing. I mean, issues from, concern of building a well within a village community to trying to deal with education and helping young people stay away from leaving school and getting involved in a terrorist group. I mean, the variety of issues around the world that our communities are addressing are really, just overwhelming when you think about it.
Thank you, Marilyn. And I know Charles has his hand up.
Yes, I'm retired now, but I was in the business community. I was an accountant, and one of the things that in the business community is you measure performance by metrics.
Mhm.
And, I support Mercy Shifts because I know what they're doing. They have metrics. I support Doctors Without Borders because they have metrics. I know what they're doing. But so far with compassion, I've been trying to set up my own charter for compassion here in my city, and I really don't have any metrics. I can't tell anyone if they become a member of the charter, what will the charter bring to the community that they don't already have? What's the metric that they will accomplish? Now, the only thing I've heard so far was from Maryland is they drilled a well in Africa, and that's a good metric. But overall, I mean, hopefully there's more than going on than just meetings and of people that have good intentions. So that's my question is, what are some examples of metrics of accomplishments for these charters that have formed?
Susan, do you have your hand raised to speak to that or for something else?
Yes, I do. Great question, Charles. Thank you. There are specific metrics in both of the documents that we're providing, both the guidebook and the sponsorship guidebook. And just a few examples would be, for example, how many people are showing up to community meetings, or even things as tangible as has the policing statistics about how has crime been reduced in the community. So those are kind of two elements on very different ends of the spectrum, but there's a number of metrics that can be tracked in both of the guides. So thank you for that question. Also, other elements that came up is we do also include in the community and in the events local food vendors and musicians and artists. So that's an important community that's involved with the compassion work as well. And then finally, it's so important to have the right people in the right roles, because when you get people that are passionate, that are able to work within their, what I call their unique genius, then they're going to be more engaged. They're going to stick around for longer. So be always cognizant as inviting people, once you get to know them, what are they passionate about? What are they good at? What do they want to contribute? Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Before Marilyn, we go to you, I'm just going to hop on. One, Charles, is getting beyond the business metrics. It can't be all about that. And the other is, and I've had this conversation, is, okay, what metric do you care about? You're talking with Napa Auto Parts or a sheet metal shop, or what do they care about? And once you start talking, you find out that what they care about is there's always this same family that asks for money, or there are unhoused people that camp out behind me, or it'll be something that is a personal pain to them. That once we get past that, we get into what is it within their immediate neighborhood that affects them? What causes them pain? Then once we get to that, then we go, okay, let's talk about that. And then you have them, you're now a different kind of partner together. And yes, all the other metrics, but really it's what's important to them. What is happening in their community that they want to see a better community. And then you said, okay, let's do that together then. Marilyn, and then Tanya, and then James.
Thank you, Charles, for that. And I think that it's important for all of us to consider how long has the compassion movement been around. Not very long, but I think in just the last couple of years, a lot has happened. We have tried a number of years to create measurement standards for compassion, but it took the Muhammad Ali Center in Louisville, Kentucky, a foundation that Muhammad Ali believed so much in compassion and the spread of compassion that his wife and the whole foundation decided they were going to put money behind the effort of measuring compassion. So in January of this year, it was launched, the Muhammad Ali Compassion City Index. Now, an important thing to note about that index is they picked 12 cities to run the original pilot in. And right now it's only for the United States. I assure you, because I'm on the group that's working on this, that it is going to be eventually international. But of the 12 cities that they picked, 6 of them were compassionate communities. 5 of them were the top 5, and then the 12th one was also a compassionate community. However, in addition, 3 of those cities were also initiatives. They haven't, been around very long, but they're in the process. And what are they measuring? They're measuring a little bit about what you just heard from Susan. They're measuring how things are in a neighborhood, how people come to be responsible for one another, how people attend meetings, how involved are they politically. There's a whole list. By the way, the report is totally free. Go to the Muhammad Ali Center, the foundation, and you'll be able to get the report. It's going to be they're continuing right now. And just through one of our events yesterday, or maybe 2 days ago, I'm not sure, we found out about another index for the LGBTQ community. And so the effort now will be to try and take and look at that survey and bring it hopefully into the city index. Then one other piece, it's another index that is being created. It's now in probably its 2nd or 3rd year, and it is an individual compassion index, so that you can figure out, how you're scoring on the index itself. And it's being put together by Kailash Satyarthi, who is one of the Nobel Peace Prize winners from India, who was the individual who and still is very much involved in stopping slavery among children.
Thank you, Marilyn. And Reverend Tanya, and then James.
Yes, just real quickly. I don't want us to forget about anecdotal data, because, relationships change. Did you leave that community better off than when you inherited it? What was different about what you did in that community that changed the people or relationships? We facilitated a community event. The designated space was within that community. We invited local politicians. We had community members and leaders, representatives from churches, and the event was supported by a local catering company. We had local talent, and we had poets and singers. It was a microcosm of that community, so that when we left that community, we had bridged relationships that would not have been there if we hadn't created that event. The best part was that the entire event was conducted at the local level, fostering meaningful connections and sustainable processes. So this could be recreated again. So we don't always have the quantifiable data, but we know that the community has changed and it has shifted, and we've made it stronger and more compassionate because of what we've done in the community.
Thank you, Reverend Tanya. And James, you are up.
Yeah, thank you so much, Reverend Laura. My name is James Ofo from Ivory Coast. Thank you for the wonderful overview on the Compassion Ambassador Team initiative and action and the framework you just shared. I begin to wonder about the methodology that you shared, because I have, for the past 12 years, 13 years, I have worked in tribal war situations and post-electoral wars environment in Ivory Coast. And I never knew that I'm a compassion ambassador. I see myself just a community peace builder. But I love this idea of compassion ambassador. It really, really painted exactly what we did. So it just to highlight a little bit about my experience in just one breath. I discovered that most of the antagonists in a post-wars live with this victimization. And that victimization is very dangerous. I call it a virus in the gap of a post-war, whereby staging a possible way of seeing the other as neighborhood, as friends, as community is some very, very challenging and somehow difficult. But I remember that fear and ignorance was what I identified in all my experience as one of the divisional elements, the dynamics of that created the gaps that is so deep that installed that victimization, that mindset of victimization in the gap, and doesn't easily allow facilitators to bridge gaps. So hearing your sharing makes me feel more comfortable because I have come to realize from the Charter for Compassion that compassion is a verb, and being a verb to empathy is so helpful because we have used empathy, like empathy listening, but informing that verb of compassion by helping antagonists to see the other person as equal human and community neighborhood in a post-war is somehow very difficult. So I want to hear more about your experience. If you have worked in such a post-war environment and you have used a compassionate matrix, a kind of an approach to bridge gaps where people feel victimized and where people feel fear and ignorance of the other in such a post-war environment.
Thank you, James. Before we go to you, Zoe, yes, you're a compassion ambassador. Everyone that's doing the work you're doing is one. Going back to what Reverend Tanya mentioned is the environmental scan of where is the pain and where is the need? And then what is the very first thing that needs to be woven back together? And there is no other place to start. And then once some of that weave, then you just keep bringing more people into the weave of it. That's, if I were where you are, that's what I would do with you. That's what you and I would do together. And if any of the other presenters have a comment about that before we continue on. You can't take on the whole thing. You just find two threads and find someone who can hold the other end and start to weave, and then bring more people in, show them how to do it and weave. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And we have in America, we have little pockets of post-war in our communities. When a Black person is shot through police violence, that's a little pocket of post-war trauma and the fabric torn apart, and in the community weaving it back together. But yours is where you are is much more deep and wide. So thank you for what you do. Marilyn, when do we have until, do we have another 5 hours? What have we got? What's our?
It all depends. I will be leaving you if it's going to be another 5 hours, but we are over time. But it's up to you, and it's up to those who have resilience here.
Okay, well, some of our presenters have other plans, and we were planning to stay till 12:30. I really want to stay with all of you. So what is next? You'll get the guide. Yeah, did you have something quick, Zoe?
Yes, I would like to say we need to pray for each other because this work is very hard. I know that the founder of the Charter for Compassion said that living in a compassionate city should be feeling difficult, that is a difficult endeavor. And it's, I have experienced compassion fatigue. So I would like to express my need for prayer from the other compassionate ambassadors here, to pray for each other because this work is necessary, but it is an uphill battle in my personal experience. So just to hold each other in prayer and support because it is not easy. At least that has been my experience. That's all.
Thank you, Zoe. And someone shared in the chat, Marge, Andre, if maybe we could have a period of time to review the handbooks and then have a follow-up meeting with anyone who wanted to have a more in-depth discussion. And that's up to the Charter for Compassion, but I would certainly be open to that.
Yeah. Yes, we're definitely open to doing that. And I know so many people here on the call today are not necessarily individuals who have started a compassionate community, but we're here to help you inaugurate a compassionate community. And so the week of April 7th, I think it is, I wrote it in the chat, we will be every day having a session very similar to this, but directly trying to help individuals. And if you think you're interested in coming there, each day is going to be at a different time so that we can hopefully reach the world, as opposed to just being in one time zone. So that's one thing. Another thing, I don't want to channel Karen Armstrong because God knows that would be anathema, who is the founder of the Charter for Compassion. But she would challenge us to say that redo some thinking. And so I understand what you just said about compassion fatigue. She's very direct, and she would say there is no such thing as compassion fatigue, that it's empathy fatigue. So that what you need to do is to reassess the methodologies that you're using so that once you really get involved actively, then that fatigue seems, you might be tired physically, but mentally, you're really kind of just so vibrant in what you're doing. And I know, Zoe, you are such a committed person. So let's work out how you can take that fatigue that might be a mental fatigue and put it into more of a physical fatigue, and which I think maybe you probably do. But I'm always struck when she gives presentations. People will say, I have compassion fatigue. And she would be then, no, you do not. There is no such thing as that. So thank you so much for this presentation. And Merida is going to work hard, I know, in the next few days to get out the recording from today. and to get out all the components, the slideshow that you saw, the 2 guidebooks that you've experienced. And then Natalia, our person who does all of our work on the website, will make certain that that is also up as a kind of book. I don't know if you've had the experience of going through an issue book, but it's just like having a book, but it's on your computer. You flip the pages, and it's really quite good. And then, I just want to encourage all of you to, right before this, we had the most incredible global read on being noble. And it was the stories, the intimate stories of the Nobel Peace Prize winners. And almost every story that we heard reinforces what you experienced today and what you shared today, both as the Sacramento team and also the people who had questions and spoke. So do join us for other events, but go to our website next week, and if you have a free hour, listen to that wonderful, wonderful global read. It was facilitated by Desmond Tutu's granddaughter, and she is really incredibly brilliant. So I'd encourage you to take a look at that as well. So thank you all again, and we hope to see you for a revisit after you've had time to read and to think about what you experienced today. And if you are interested in creating a compassionate community, join us in one of those days in April. You'll see all of the information in the newsletter. Thanks again.
Thank
Bye.
you so much, everyone.
Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much.
everyone.
Hope to
This has
talk
been
to you
really
again
good.
soon.
It's been so nourishing. Thank you.
Thank you,
Have a blessed
everyone.
Thank you
weekend,
so
everybody.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Au revoir, Côte d'Ivoire.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you
Bye,
so much.
everyone.
Bye.
Take good care.
Bye.